According to a report by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, in 2010, almost half of all Americans who receive food stamps are children. 8% are elderly, and 20% are disabled. For the 25% who are left, or roughly 10 million Americans, do you think the job creators could step up and offer them jobs so that they and their children could get off food stamps instead of sending the jobs overseas where labor is cheap and items can be shipped here without tariffs?
Yes, job creators can give them jobs, but job creators are not going to do it because why? It costs too much to employ people here. They can do it cheaper overseas. One of the kind of rock and hard places that catch-22 for the American people is you have the far left that says, hey, if we lower taxes for corporations, that's bad. You have the far right that says, if we lower tax for corporations, but we lower tax for all the rich people as well, that's good. And the lower class or middle class, and I hate to use class terminology, are the ones who kind of get left dangling in the wind. The fact of the matter is we have to lower those corporate tax rates, but at the same time, we have to give something back to the American public. And yes, we can do that, but it has to be a cooperation. We can't just say, okay, you guys have to do this now and expect them to do it. Yes, they're in it to make a profit. Just like my company, I own a business.
Andre, haven't we already given them tons of tax breaks? I mean, right now we're still waiting for them to.
It still costs them a huge amount to litigate those tax breaks. They have attorneys that actually do all of this work to get that lower value.
Rather than hiring attorneys, shouldn't they be hiring people gainfully employed?
We're still in a higher tax bracket than they are in China.
Okay.
They're still paying more per capita than they are in different countries, even at their lowest tax rate that they get here.
I see Harry shaking his head. I want to know why. Go ahead, Harry.
I think this is this is why we're in so much trouble. Andre seems to think that the very companies that have deindustrialized our country and run us into the ground are suddenly, because they have no problem having slave labor in China. And that's the way the free market works. It's the eat or be eaten attitude, and that's all corporations work under. You call them job creators. I call them job destroyers. And quality
of life. And I would say
life.
that you guys need to listen to the full answer to the question that I'm giving, because I believe in a protected economy. Well, no, because you were shaking your head, so she interrupted my
Harry
answer.
had the floor.
So,
Andrea, I'm going to give Harry his full minute. So, and then Andre,
you didn't actually give me a full minute to answer, but go ahead, Harry.
Okay, so Harry, why don't you finish, and then I'll get back to Andre, and Andre, I'll give you extra time, okay?
If I was president, I'm confident I could convince the majority of citizens to hire those 10 million people immediately and put them to work creating organic food production systems in every community. So not only would they not have to worry about food stamps, they would actually have food that was fit to eat for them and their children, because the food we are right now providing our citizens is highly contaminated, genetically modified. It is not fit to eat. Even the fish you catch in the sea, if you can find any left, are not fit to eat. They're so contaminated with mercury and other chemical poisons that we have no regulations to protect our people against. We have let the private markets run amok. And that is why the only planet in the universe that we can live on is in the final stages of being utterly destroyed.
Okay, Andre, why don't you get back to how are we going to employ these 10 million people?
The only way you can employ these people is through a protected economy approach. That's what the initial framers of the Constitution had actually envisioned. And by protecting it, yes, you are going to raise the standard of living. And if you hadn't noticed when I was getting into that, yes, you are going to lower that tax rate for corporations to bring jobs back. And then you protected hedges by placing tariffs on imports that are coming in, especially from countries that place high imports on our goods. And what that does is it creates not only a tax haven, but it also creates an environment where companies are going to hire here because it's cheaper to do work here. It's cheaper to do manufacturing. It's cheaper to do your technical support. Everything is going to be cheaper here. And even with the higher increase in pay that they would have to pay Americans and many more Americans, they would still be doing it at a higher profit to themselves. Now, back to the food, I have nothing against agricultural development saying, hey, you know what, we need to have natural food. We need to have free range meat. We can't keep putting chemicals because I believe in that.
Okay.
But don't tell me that you have to do it and say that we have to force companies to come back, because you can't force them to come back into the U.S. and hire people. You cannot do it.
Okay.
You don't need them at all.
You have a 30-second rebuttal, Harry.
Thank you. We don't. You can't. I don't care about forcing companies to do anything. All companies, except that companies should not be allowed to make profits by poisoning our American citizens and the rest of the people on this planet. That's what they do right now. If you had to live without poison, most of these companies would be out of business. The fact is, we don't have any humane regulations. We're doing far more damage. Well, once again, I'll repeat this one more time. According to the National Academy of Sciences, we are in the final stages of making this entire planet uninhabitable because of this mindless belief that private corporations are suddenly going to start worrying about how the average American citizen is functioning. They don't care. The only thing they care about is exploiting them and making as much money as possible.
Andre, I heard you say that we would go back to the way the original founding fathers had envisioned our country, and then you started talking about corporate taxes. But
and the economy. What's
and
that?
I have to say, back in those days, I don't think that most of the people in this country even cared about corporations, because 50% of our society was agrarian. That means they were working in farms. So we had very different economy back then.
Though, if we're talking, but we do have corporations today. And the original framers of the Constitution, if you look back, and this was before what we see as the Constitution has been created, this is when we were actually still under the rule of Great Britain, and everything that was manufactured in this country went to Great Britain. We were not able to manufacture really anything. And that's the reason that we first had it. They said we would protect the people, we would protect manufacturing in this in this country, so that we would not be oppressed by other countries like Great Britain. That's one of the issues. And we have to protect our economy. Yes, wages went up, higher paid people were being paid more, but it was still cheaper to do business here.
Okay. All right, I have to take a drink. Clear my throat here.
But let me ask, Andre, when you say protect our economy, is that you cut taxes on corporations? Is that how you protect our economy?
I cut taxes on corporations and I cut taxes on individuals. Let me tell you how this works.
Everyone says,
why don't you take a picture? Go ahead and take a snapshot of China. Look at what they've done. People always say, well, China's going to fall. China's doing some horrible stuff. They're manipulating their currency, all of these things. Well, you know what? Give or take, China's taken a page out of our book. They're doing exactly what we did in Lincoln's era. Now, we did not manipulate our currency, but they hedged themselves against the global economy. So no matter what happens on the outside, they're still protected. When we had the economic downturn globally, what did China do? They prospered. Why? Because they've taken measures to make sure that their people, now, don't get me wrong, yes, they still have slave labor, and everything is owned by the government.
It's a terrible standard of living. And they're just making all their people have cancer because all the effluent goes into the rivers. They don't have any regulations. There's no quality of life. There's no quality of life in China. Don't talk to me about China. I'm sorry. It's upsetting me because you're putting economics above health. You're putting your economics above health. I'm sorry.
You're talking to me about the human rights. But you're not talking about the economy. Your question was, how do we get people jobs here? That was your question.
Andre, don't you know that China's government runs their economy? It's a state-run economy.
Of course I do. I know exactly what China's government does. I have more economic prowess than you'll ever think about. But let me tell you, the fact of the matter is, the steps that they took, I'm not saying that we need a state-run economy. What I'm saying is the measures that were put in place, you're still not listening. You're going back to China. I said the measures they've taken to hedge themselves against economic infrastructure from the external countries is what we have to do, protecting our economy. I'm not saying that we need to run it by the states, but we do have to say, okay, look, you're putting tariffs on our goods that are being exported, we're putting tariffs on the goods that are being imported. Yes, we're going to lower the tax rate for corporations, but we're also going to lower the tax rate for our working class people. And we're going to give them something back. That's why I said we have to take those measures to protect our economy, because it still makes it cheaper to do business here. But at the same time, we detach ourselves from the economic downturn that can occur throughout the rest of the world. That's how we bring jobs back. That's how we get those people that are on welfare working again. I'm not talking, this question was not based on the human right. It wasn't based on what we're feeding or if we're poisoning people. We have to stick to the topic. And this is one of the problems in Washington right now. People don't know how to stay on task.
Well,
Talk
except
about
that
what the questions are and address those issues, and then we can get to other things. But if you don't solve that problem, if you can't answer the question, then you're going around in circles and it never gets solved.
well, the problem though, Andre, is if you touch on one subject, you touch on everything. And that
No,
there's an interrelationship.
example.
There is an interrelationship. As soon as you change something in the economy, you also change something in the environment. There's no way
You're
around
right.
it.
Do change something in the environment, but that still doesn't equate to coming back and saying, well, we have to talk about food when we're talking about jobs.
It's all related.
It
That
is
used
all
to be a
related.
major job part of the economy, Andre, or did you forget that?
No, I
It's
haven't
because
forgotten
we
that.
put
Believe me,
corporations in charge.
my entire
Excuse me.
platform is
Andre,
based
you've been
around
talking
all
for 2
encompassing
minutes.
solutions.
Can I say something?
Sure you can.
It's because you and your attitude have put the corporations into this agribusiness thing, which is why we have contaminated our people and are creating trillions of dollars of healthcare
costs.
in terms of cancer.
But now you're pointing the finger at
Now
me.
you're not letting
This is why I'm
me
gonna cut
speak.
you off, because you're right, because you're blaming me for something that I didn't do. Don't
That's
say me
right.
and my
I'm blaming
attitude
you
has done
because
anything.
your attitude is
Because I'm not.
exactly.
My attitude is I believe in free
You're
range.
just
I believe in natural foods. I believe in taking care of people. But the question was not about that. So if you want me to get into my agricultural solutions, then I'll do that. But don't blame me for something that you just want to put out there and say me and my attitude.
Uh-oh,
You
be
don't
careful.
have my attitude on everything.
We're gonna run out of time to do a debate. Okay, so let's get back to.
For what
We're
you
not-
say.
We're not
and
going to
what
solve the.
you say.
Just get
We're-
yourself
hold
under
on.
control and think about
Okay.
the question.
I'm sorry, we have to move on.